Today, I invited a power shot to my virtual studio. I almost want to keep him, to myself. Like he is my secret of improving in the entrepreneurial journey. Kane Minkus, a 3 times international best-selling author, 40 times serial entrepreneur, generating over $500 million. Is that US dollars? Okay.
It's US dollars. Yeah.
Leading advisor for startups and scale-ups, having trained over 3 million professionals from 80 countries. He is a thought leader in transformational technologies and breakthrough thinking for startups and scale-ups. Welcome, Kane.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's great to be here with you.
Very grateful that you're here today.
Cool. So what would you like to dive into today's conversation?
So I actually wanted to challenge you on one concept. And I've seen entrepreneurs and also, a client of mine, while they are developing new concepts and new businesses, and I'm seeing them, trying to get things perfect, or when they say ready, quote unquote, it can take them years, to go to market. So, I know you have this concept and also in practice, selling before building. A lot of people struggle with that. And I wanted to start with the first question is, and also a limiting belief of mine. Is it ethical to do it? Selling before building. Can you explain what it is?
It's interesting that you asked the question about, is it ethical to sell before you build? So first of all, it's been going on since the beginning of business time. And you actually are exposed to products and services that are all the time sold online, for example, that don't exist. Yeah. They don't exist yet. It's an incredible way to do market research. So now the question, I think the ethical question is it ethical to take people's money for something that's maybe not true? No, that I believe is not the situation. But here's what's going on. Okay. The actual point of transaction is different than the choices of transaction. In other words, one of the best ways to determine what's the right thing for a product or for a company is to understand what are people's decision-making process to go ahead with a purchase. And so, in fact, we like to take them all the way through to the very, very last moment where there's a button that says buy now. And then when they click on the button, they've clicked, and then it takes them to a page that says, oh, I'm sorry, this product is not available, or it's not available yet, or it's going to be getting released or launched shortly. Right. So we're not accepting anybody's money in exchange for something that's not real or not true. But we are taking them through the process because we're learning about what we want to sell. Is it actually being positioned correctly? Do people want it? What's the process? And the only way to really know if a product's going to sell in the marketplace is actually to go sell it. There's no other way, right? So if you want to consider whether you want to invest time, energy, money, and resources into building a product or a service or a technology, the best way to do it is to literally go out there and sell it to somebody, but not to sell them the concept, to actually have them go all the way through where they pull out their money, or they say, I'm ready to wire you the money, or I'm ready to do the bank transfer, or however, whatever you're doing. And if it's a high ticket or low ticket, whatever, it's just, you actually get them to the point where they say, yes, here's my credit card, let's do it. And then you don't have to actually accept their money or run their card, but they have already said, let's do it, and handed you the card. That's the big process. The actually subtracting their money from their account or charging them something on their credit card. That's a logistics step after they have agreed to buying whatever you're selling.
So what you're saying is we use selling before building as a market research method. This can mitigate the risk, right? So during the process, you will find out whether your product, whether people will accept your product. So accepting meaning are they going to pay for it? Because people saying, okay, I like it. But then their behavior, what do they mean by liking it?
Hey, I like you, and I want to get married are two different decision-making steps, right? Exactly. And so I like the concept, and I'm going to actually buy it and invest money in it is two different concepts as well, right? And let's keep in mind that with services, you're almost always selling it before it's delivered, right? Now, whether it's been built, we say sell before building, and that's just kind of a catch-all phrase to product, services, technologies, or any type of business.
Mm-hmm.
But in services, you're always selling. You're always taking deposits down, even if you're building products. We recently just bought a new desk for our office, a custom-made desk. They wanted it
Mm-hmm.
paid before it was even created. It was a
Mm-hmm.
custom built thing. They said, you pay for it, then we create it, and then we ship it.
Yeah.
We bought
Yeah.
it. So it happens
Yeah.
all the time actually in business. And so services are always sold like this. They're essentially always sold where you sell the service and then you either take in a deposit or you take
Mm-hmm.
in, something where you always sell services before you've actually delivered them. So it's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
common practice. The idea of being able to sell it before you build it is the idea of making sure that people want it and exactly how they want it. Because you really do
Mm-hmm.
learn so much about what people want when you go to ask them to make a commitment. Because when they
Yeah.
make a commitment, they start going, well, wait a second. Is it this? Is it that? Am I going to get this? When can I get it? Can I get it like the way I want it? And you start learning
Yeah.
everything you need to learn about how to sell that product, service, or technology.
Yeah. Then I do have, this leads to another question because I have business owners, emerging business leaders as my clients. So I have often hear that, they complain about somebody not delivering, the services that they promise. So, this happens a lot too. And so how would you react to this? Because this leads me to think like what needs to be true for the selling before building to happen.
So I think you're talking about two different things in here, right?
Yeah.
So somebody selling services and not delivering their services or not delivering them properly is a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
of, let's say, a quality issue around
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment. To me, I've always divided
Mm-hmm.
a business into marketing, sales, and delivery at its
Yeah.
simplest form. And so
Yeah.
as you market something, are you being authentic and responsible in your marketing? In sales, are you being authentic and responsible in your sales with your
Mm-hmm.
promises? And then fulfillment, are
Mm-hmm.
you delivering what you promised? Right. And
Yeah.
so it's obviously very, very important that you're authentic and accurate in all. Even if you want to hype up or do a very highly excited version of it, then you still need to make sure you're following through with your promises. So, it's very,
Mm-hmm.
very important that one does that. But your question is what needs to be true in order to be able to sell something before you build it? Is
Yeah.
that the question?
Yeah, that's the
Well,
question. Because then this party A says I'm very confident about my services
mhm.
and about the quality of my services. Then part B bought it, and then in the fulfillment, does not think part A delivers on promise. So you're saying this is a very different issue. It's a like different understanding of quality.
Um, well, so uh, that's true. So I guess it really comes down to you're talking more about an ethics around delivery of actually
Promise.
deliver, yeah, deliver the promise, right?
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
this, what needs to be true to selling before building has very little to do with ethics of delivery and quality of delivery. I think selling before building it's a strategy to research and understand things, and it's a strategy to understand your customer better to build a better product or service or technology.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Mm-hmm.
what you deliver has to be aligned with your promise. And
Mm-hmm.
so whether you've built it and selling it or whether you're selling it, I mean, essentially, if you haven't built it yet, but you're taking them through the sales process, do the research,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
chance in not fulfilling because technically you shouldn't be actually receiving their money. Or if you do, if you're saying, well, I am going to sell it before I build it. For example, trainings, this conferences, expos, events, theaters,
Mm-hmm.
conferences, concerts, you're constantly buying things before they get there.
Yeah.
And that's part of the leap of faith of consumerism, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important for a brand and for a customer experience that you continue to deliver what you said you're going to
Mm-hmm.
deliver. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have a hard time having a long customer lifetime value. And you
Yeah.
won't get, referrals and you won't have a
Yeah.
very strong brand in the marketplace because people talk behind your back. That's just how it
Yeah.
works. Or not even behind your back.
Yeah.
They talk out in the marketplace. They talk about, hey, did you go to that event? Did you use
Yeah.
that consultant? Did you work with that person? And then they talk about what it was like. And if they say, well, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really worth the money, or they over delivered, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
love that over delivered commentary. So we hear all the
Mm-hmm.
time people are recommending their friends because we over delivered. And when they talk to their friends, they say just go work with them, go do the trainings with them, or go to their workshops or seminars or expos, or get
Mm-hmm.
their digital products, or mentor with them if you can afford it, that kind of thing. They say because they
Mm-hmm.
over deliver. You pay for one thing,
Mm-hmm.
you think you're getting a next, and you get more. And it's always
Mm-hmm.
been a philosophy of ours to over deliver, which is I think why we become so comfortable with building it before we sell it, because many times even if we have it, we over deliver it. And it doesn't matter whether it's
Mm-hmm.
physical products, technologies, or services. We got in the habit of over delivering. I got this message from my mentors early on in my career: always over deliver, and everybody will always be happy, right?
Yeah.
And so
So
you get used to
yeah,
always adding to it.
yeah, one truth is, having a strong brand, like, for you, it's over delivering. And I experienced that. And it just reminded me of, last Christmas, I pre-ordered Michael Bublé's new soundtrack. So, it wasn't recorded yet, but it's
Yeah,
Michael Bublé's brand. And also, I think Michael Dell, when he sold computers before they built it.
all the
Um,
time. It's a great
and also
funding.
Elon Musk,
Yeah,
right?
it's a great funding strategy too, and we've recommended
Yeah,
pre-sales
yeah.
all the time. Now, when you say sell it before you build it versus pre-sales, um,
Hmm.
I think the ethics that you're maybe bumping up against is how you communicate whether it's been designed or built yet. So we're very big about transparency. Now, if you're actually going to take somebody's money, then it's very
Hmm.
important that there's transparency in the sales process and there's honesty and integrity. If you are
Hmm.
just taking them through the process to discover and research, and ultimately you're going to not actually take their money, you just want to see what's
Hmm.
going on in the decision making process,
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
I don't think you need to reveal that it's not built yet, because you're not taking their money. You're just taking them through a
Hmm.
process to learn and
Hmm.
discover. I mean, if you want to, you
Hmm.
can. That's up to you. But if you're going to take somebody's money and you're going to do a transaction, I think just it's important that you say, and I haven't recorded the record yet, and we haven't
Hmm.
built the computer yet. We're taking in
Hmm.
pre-orders, which happens all the
Yeah.
time. You buy
Yeah.
books before they've been released. You buy records before they've been released. You buy technology before it's been released.
Yeah.
Pre-sales happens all the time, right? And sometimes it's not about research; it's about funding. Michael
Hmm.
Bublé could have been funding his record,
Hmm.
right? Or maybe
Yep.
honestly, they missed a window where they should have gotten it out during a holiday season, and he couldn't get
Hmm.
in the studio because he was, I don't know, not feeling well, or he was off doing another project, or he just wasn't willing to, or whatever. And the record company
Hmm.
didn't want to miss that season, so they developed some marketing for a record that wasn't even recorded yet, and then
Yeah.
they sold it and they took in the money. And of course, if Michael decided, if he didn't do the record and they couldn't deliver, they would have refunded it, I'm assuming. But
Hmm.
that happens all the time. And it could
Hmm.
be a funding issue. It could be a marketing play. We could be looking to capture a time of, time of essence, right
Yeah.
there. So it happens all the time
Yeah.
for companies.
Yeah. So I heard the brand, and the confidence. So for a startup, if I don't have track record, um, I was actually thinking of Elon Musk. He was just so confident, with that. Even with that, the first car, the Roadster, right? They sold it for like 100 grand. They didn't even build it. Then they got like, I can't remember, like 1,000 or 100 sold. Then if that's 100, that's like $10 million.
Yeah.
So
And they never built it, or they sold it before they built it.
Roaster, I heard the Roaster. They sold it before they built it,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So is it the confidence, or it takes a certain personality, like in your experiences, because you've trained so many entrepreneurs, startups, scale up owners. Like, do you see a like common trait, or it doesn't matter?
So I see a common trait of fear.
The confidence.
Yeah. I think
Mm-hmm.
people are not as comfortable selling something that they haven't built yet, which is unfortunate, because I think it's a very important part of the
Yeah.
process. I mean, think about how much you learn when you go sell something and then you go to sell it the next time. And so
Yeah.
why should you not have that intel for the first time so that you can make a better product? And so
Mm-hmm.
we go out and we sell stuff all the time that hasn't been built, especially in the training industry. We go and we sell the training.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we sell the training, it hasn't been built yet. The customers actually don't care. They just want to make sure when it's delivered in once they get to the delivery dates, the expectations. The promise is we start the training in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or a month, 6 weeks or no problem. When I get to that training date, I want it to have arrived and be delivered the way it was promised. As long as you keep your promises, everybody in business seems to be very, very comfortable with the whole situation. So I think that a lot of people are not comfortable with that scenario. They think it's, it's weird.
No.
It's not truthful.
It doesn't come naturally. Or, our education system doesn't train us on that.
If it feels important to you to be transparent as a salesperson for your business, then just tell them, I haven't built it yet, but I'm going to be delivering it on X date.
Yeah.
If that feels more honest to you, great. Sometimes we say stuff like that. Sometimes we feel like it doesn't matter because the promise is not that we've built it. We're always very authentic and very in integrity in our businesses and always has been. I've been running the company since I was 19 years old. And my very first coach always said to me, make sure you're honest and authentic with your customers. It's an important role. No problem. That seemed like not a big deal anyways, because it just created good relationships. But I never, when I go and I sell something that's not built, I don't say it's already built and refined and amazing. Then I would be out of integrity. I just don't say anything. I just say, here's when it's going to be delivered.
That's the key confusion people have. They need to see this tangible thing and perfect it in their minds before they can be confident.
That's fine, but that's not the promise, right? So to me, what's very important for integrity of consumer trust and responsibility, and there's even laws around like being responsible. To me, the way I like kind of review and interpret. I'm not saying I'm a lawyer or giving any legal advice. The way I interpret it, the way to protect the consumer is, if you make a promise and you accept their money, you deliver it to their satisfaction. And if you don't, you either return their money or you make them whole somehow, either by giving them something else or just making sure they feel
That's
whole.
A great point. A promise to return the money, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if you're not happy.
I mean, it's like, and sometimes we have promises to return money if people are not happy. And, it's been very, very few, but throughout the history of we had hundreds of thousands of customers come through our companies, between our business consumer and business to business companies. And 1%, 0.5%, we may refund their money because something didn't work out. We didn't fulfill on our promises. Others sometimes say, I would just keep my money, but what else can I get from you? Right. It's a little bit like an airline. I was flying on an airline. I won't name any names, and they canceled the flight, and I didn't find out until I arrived at the airport. And they said, okay, we're not giving you your money back, but you can take any flight or you can get a credit for your next flight. They didn't offer money back. And in their terms and conditions, they said it's non-refundable. And if it's canceled, you'll receive a credit towards the next flight, or you can receive other options. Somehow we will take care of you as a customer. And it was a little bit frustrating because they didn't take care of the 3 hours that I, wasted coming to the airport, waiting around in the last minute to find out, and then an hour to travel back. But that's part of the risk that we take. And now we won't travel on that airline anymore, not because they didn't take care of us, but I didn't feel like the whole system was taken care of. And so I didn't even care about the money. I didn't even care they sold me that ticket before the flight. And look, the flight couldn't even go. The flight didn't even happen. So they sold me something before it was able to be delivered. We took that risk. That's part of the brand. It didn't work out. I didn't care that it didn't work out. I mean, we're business owners. Things don't work out all the time for different reasons. I mean, I don't mean like all the time. I just mean like in life, things happen where things don't work out. Everybody means well. Professionals mean to do a good job. Business owners plan to take care. It's how you take care of the customer when it doesn't work out.
Yeah. I think there are also your belief system, like the default setting. Because I heard you just said, everybody means well. But to some people, they don't think everybody means well. They think people are out there to trick them. So that's where, if our default setting is like that, then your belief system and your behavior will be different, right?
It's very true. And it's a good point. I don't have that belief, and I've never had that belief. I don't believe people are out there to trick each other. I just don't think so.
A lot of people believe that.
Yeah,
that's fine. Like,
it's amazing to me. When people come to our events and they're skeptical. I thought you were just going to rip me out. I was like, really? Like, I never think about that. But I also, and I don't know if it's part of the belief experience cycle, but I rarely ever get ripped off. Right. And if I do, I'm like, I'll tell you, and again, I don't want to name too many names on things, but it's rare that I ever feel like I got ripped off. And maybe I'm getting ripped off more than I know.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't care because for me,
Yeah.
life works out, right? I don't think
Yeah.
I'm getting ripped off that much. But like, am I paying more for some things that I could? Well, then that's a lesson to me that I should be a better negotiator. So I don't
Hmm.
look at it like the world is happening to me. I don't look at myself as a victim in the world. I look at if I
Hmm.
did something and I find out later I got ripped off, I went, oh man, good for that person for getting past
Yeah.
my detail orientation, or
Monitoring system.
yeah, getting past my security systems or my wisdom or
Yeah.
my observation. I learned a very good lesson. May have been an
Yeah.
expensive lesson. I've learned a few
Yeah.
expensive lessons in my life,
Yeah.
but I look back on those expensive lessons and I go, I'm really glad I learned those because I probably would have lost more money over my life if I didn't learn
Yeah.
it and become
Yeah.
observant of it. I'll give you an example of something that really
That's a
upset me.
great point.
Yeah.
Because I know as coaches, you're very good at shifting people's mindset. So that's very good. Like, our default settings are different. So
Well,
yeah.
look, my very first coach when I was 19 years old, I had an excellent business coach. She said to me, your business and your wealth will be a direct relationship, direct mirror to how accountable you are for your life
Mm.
and your business. So if
Hmm.
you think it's other people's fault, or it's the economy's fault, or it's your leader's fault, or it's the market's fault, or your customer's fault, you
Yeah.
just won't create the same kind of wealth that if
Yeah.
you say everything is my fault. If it works, it works. If for me, if it's screwed up, it's screwed up because of me. And not like an
Yeah.
ego, like if it works, it's all because of me. It's just if you take on 100% accountability
Hmm.
for your life and your wealth and your business and your customers and all that, you will have a different world of wealth that's waiting for you than if you feel like people are out there to rip you off and you're a victim. It's very
Hmm.
simple. I think Tony Robbins has been probably talking about this for 35 years.
Yeah.
The difference between that.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an interesting story. So
Hmm.
we went on a trip, and I won't say to which country, but it was outside of the U.S. And
Hmm.
we got to this trip, and it was a family trip. It was just a holiday vacation, and we had rented a car for the week that we were there. And we were planning on driving up and down the coast. So we wanted to have this car, and we were excited because we found a great deal online. And
Hmm.
normally we thought, my gosh, it'll be another $4,000 or $5,000 to rent this car and travel all the distance. And we found it for like $1,100 online, like a Priceline or something like that. And I was like, this is awesome. And so we went to this country. And when we arrived there, they said, okay, you need to pay another $600 for insurance for the week.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, okay. I mean, but I don't need the insurance. I'm actually covered globally on my own insurance for anything that happens. And they
Yeah.
said, well, we don't need the insurance. We'll waive the insurance. They said, well, if you want to waive the insurance, then you're going to have to give us a credit card with $20,000 down on it for the car. So I was either forced to pay
Wow.
for the insurance or I was forced to give them 20 grand on my credit card. Right. And I felt like,
Only
well,
those two options.
that was it. Either you pay for the insurance or you leave
Yeah.
us, we're gonna take 20,000 as a deposit until you return the car. Right.
Wow.
I was like, well, I don't want to have some company in a foreign country have $20,000 because
Hmm.
then I gotta, or the whole thing. So I was just like, well, but I felt really like stuck. And most importantly is I didn't feel like the expectation was set. Okay, now the
Hmm.
money to me was actually not, it wasn't a big deal, but it was like
Yeah. So the
suddenly
expectation is very important.
exactly the
Yeah.
expectation, right? And it wasn't that there was a different promise made because this is a slightly different thing. I mean,
Hmm.
making a promise and not delivering is one can of worms that you have to make sure
Yeah.
you don't do in business. But
Yeah.
the other one is setting the expectation or having like you understand your customers have an expectation that when they buy something from you, that they expect that whatever they thought they were buying,
Yeah.
which is part of your communication,
That's
that
a very important point.
yeah,
The
that it's going to get
expectation.
delivered inside of that commitment that they made. So we
Yeah.
expected arriving there that with the cost of the car was going to be 1,100 to 1,200 bucks, and that was it.
Hmm.
We didn't expect another 600 or 650 bucks for insurance,
Hmm.
and it was not stated anywhere. We went back and we looked through everything because I was very sort of turned off by that experience to think
Yeah.
that we arrived somewhere and we were now forced to either be without a car, which was not possible for a vacation, or have to drop
Hmm.
another $650. And again, it wasn't the money side. To me, it's never been about the money. To me, it's always been about the value or the transparency in the transaction,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I felt that it wasn't
Yeah.
transparent. Now, what did I
Yeah.
learn? And so my question is not, these guys ripped me off and everybody's trying to rip us off and what a rip off. And I said, what did I learn? Well, what I learned is I should have been more proactive to reach out to the company ahead of time and say, are there any other fees that I need to incur to be able
Hmm.
to take this car off this lot? And
Mm-hmm.
they were a very reputable company. They probably would have just told us. I didn't think to ask. It was nowhere in the
Mm-hmm.
literature. It's to them, it's like that's normal practice. You're going to take a car, you're either
Yeah.
going to get insurance or you're going to give us a deposit on the car in case you damage it. You're in a
Mm-hmm.
foreign country. And so
Mm-hmm.
that taught me a good lesson. And it was
Yeah.
a $650
But on the
lesson.
other hand, it's their learning on their customer experience, right? So you experience that brand, and yeah, you
Right.
want it to be properly, taken care of.
Right. And as a coach,
Especially you don't want that negative emotion during a
right.
vacation.
As a coach, I stood there and I explained to the salesperson why this was really a bad customer experience and why this would turn off. And his feeling
Yeah.
was, I don't care because it's not my company, which is, by the way, another important thing. If you have a team, if you're listening to this and you have a team, you better
Yeah.
train your team to care as much about that customer's experience as you do,
Mm-hmm.
because many times they're standing there with the human being and they feel
Yeah.
more allegiant to them than to the company,
Yeah.
because it's uncomfortable to stand with a human face to face and have to
Yeah.
deal with frustration or disappointment or whatever. They tend to side with the humans or the customers. This person was just very indifferent for anybody. They
Yeah.
didn't care who was
Totally. The person, the front person always has the most power on the brand.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So another question I have, still we're in what needs to be true for the selling before building to happen. Another question I have is, how about the competitors? So I've got entrepreneurs, business owners saying, okay, I don't want to go out and talk to people about this. I don't want my competitors to know about this. I personally feel this is a weaker point.
well,
Why would you care about your competitors?
I get asked this all the time because I get pitches, sometimes I get up to 100 pitches a week from people that are looking
Yeah.
to pitch us on their ideas and everything. And many of them say, I want you to sign an NDA. Now, there's a time and a place for an NDA so that in case we are advising, consulting, or we're building something that we would keep, private. But if you are out selling something and you're going to have to reveal so much that somebody else is going to be able to rip you off, it's not a very well designed product or service to create a barrier to entry by your competitors. And so guess what? As soon as you sell it, they're going to rip it off anyways. And the idea that likely if you've thought about it, even if you're testing it and researching it, somebody else is in the game testing, researching, and noticing that problem that you're solving as well and working on their own thing. Now, there's probably some exceptions in there, and maybe someone in tech or somebody saying, no, 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 you can't reveal. But I would say you should be able to sell anything on promises and solutions to people's problems without having to describe or discuss your process in so much detail that it will reveal some sort of sensitive intellectual property. So if you can't do that, then you're probably bringing a product to the marketplace that's just going to get ripped off and undersold, very quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Um, the next question is, how about regulatory requirements? So I'm giving you all the, negative thoughts about this selling before building concept, because people are like, okay, so my industry is different, all those regulatory requirements and yeah, we need to like really build this thing before we can sell it. But then, I'm wondering, how about Elon Musk? You would think car industry is heavily regulated, right? Computer industry. Like, what's your experience on this?
So I think, first of all, remember there's a difference between taking them through the sales process and then actually accepting their
Mm-hmm.
money and having to deliver a product. So
Mm-hmm.
really, the idea behind selling before building is either you're doing it for research, you're identifying it's a pre-sale so that people
Mm-hmm.
know what they're getting into,
Mm-hmm.
or it's an appropriate product to sell before you build, like a training or a consulting or a service, something like that. If there's
Mm-hmm.
regulations, I think you need to follow the regulations. I mean, there are regulations in place for reasons. I mean, I'm not there's so much anti-government, anti-establishment, anti-stuff. I mean, I'm just not one of those people. Like, I just feel like, honestly, I've had a lot of friends that have been in leadership positions and regulations and governments. And my experience has been for world leaders and leaders in politics that actually a lot of them are really interested in creating great
Yeah.
stuff for human. Like, they want to
Yeah.
create great laws and great
Innovation, right?
regulations. Yeah, I mean, they're actually just they want to protect people, and you may not agree with it. I don't agree with everything that's out there in legislation and laws, but I follow them. Like, It's like, look, I mean, I maybe I don't agree with it, but I understand it. It's like in a marriage, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't always agree with what my wife thinks about something, but I understand it, and we
Mm-hmm.
find a way to work together on it, right? Same thing with me. I mean, let's just say that in reverse, right? She may not always agree with what I'm saying, but we understand it, and so you may not agree with it, but regulations are part of the game. So there's no reason not to manage regulations properly. So if you're regulated in a certain industry, like if you're in medical, if you're in financial, if you're in automotive, if you're in something like that, then you have to consider that into the process of selling before building it. The commenter on selling before building is really a process to discover how to build a better product and sales process.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say go sell it, I think a lot of people say sell it, take their money, and then whatever happens, happens. That's actually not what I mean. I really mean
Mm-hmm.
go and sell it, go take them through the sales process.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to take their money, make sure it's appropriate to do that. If not, it doesn't make a difference because meaning you don't have to take their money to get the value out of that process. You're just trying to
Mm-hmm.
discover what do they need to hear, what do they need in the product or in the service to buy it. You then
Mm-hmm.
take that information, you can go back to your company and make a better company, a better product.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of selling it before building it is not so much that you're taking the money, is that you're taking them through the process.
Mm-hmm. So you just mentioned it's a process. My last question is like how you know do you break it down? Um, how do we do it?
The
Like
process is like the sales
the
process.
process of selling before building. Like yeah, then we're going through the process. Is it like a mirror of your real process?
Yeah, well, it's
Like
actually
you.
it's actually informing the real process. So the
Mm,
first thing I do is to come up with a concept. Let's say I've got an idea for a product, and I get wild hairs all the time on ideas that probably should never have happened. Oh, I got a great idea for a new product or a new technology or a new training
yeah,
product.
yeah.
Probably should never have had it. But in order to
Mm-hmm.
know whether it's going to be received by the market in the same enthusiasm that
Mm-hmm.
I have for it, I get on the phone with 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people that I probably the first stage is people that are willing to accept my call. And
Mm-hmm.
I always go to the target market. Don't
That can
waste.
be very challenging from time to time, to get 15 to 20 people on the call.
Yeah, well, and
Like
and
imagine the time invested in it.
yeah, and so it's usually buddies that I call first, or
Mm,
friends, and I say, hey, I want to run a pitch by you and sell this to you, okay?
yeah.
And I say to them, and I take them all the way through to, so do you want to buy it? Not let me just pitch you the concept in theory. It doesn't
Mhm.
cross the behavioral threshold line of if I need to make a decision, how discerning am
That's
I
the
going to
key.
get?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Across
I
the
mean,
behavioral decision making. Yeah.
yeah. So I have a buddy named Todd, right? So I may call up Todd and I say,
Yeah.
Todd, let me pitch you on this. Ready? Here we go. I'm going to do this, and this. What do you think? Oh, I love it. Great. So do you want to join? You want to be in? Yeah, mate. Well, no, you're hesitant. Why are you hesitant? Tell me. Well, I'm not sure about this. I don't know about that. Okay, great. If we did it like this and like this and like this, yeah, then I'm in. Great. You want to give me your credit card number? Oh, you wanted me to buy it? Yeah. Well, I don't know. I got to talk to my wife. Oh, that's good information. You may have to talk to wife. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well,
Cool.
what would you need to know so you don't have to talk to your wife? Well, I don't know. Can I put down a small deposit to secure my spot? Sure, absolutely. Okay, then I'm in. So you want my credit card number? Nah, I was just testing. Let's. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'll be back with the product when I get it built.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of thing, right? So I
So
like. I
is it
always.
like first you have your trusting circle, like you can always pitch,
Yeah, I mean, it's not always the
and,
same
and
people, but
then next get the your questionnaire right, like qualitative
so the
questionnaire,
the
not
first
yes and
question I
no
have is
questions.
who's the real decision maker for this? I want to go interact
Mm,
with them. And I only talk to people that would really buy it, not theoretical buyers. This is another big mistake
mm,
that a lot of people do. They go talk to people that would never be the actual buyers and they get all their opinions. And then they reshape their product or their brand or their company around people that
yeah.
their opinion's not important to you, right?
Hmm.
And I don't mean they're not important people. I just mean an opinion of somebody that can't make a buying
Yeah.
decision will not
Not
give you a
important
valuable feedback.
to this topic or to this
Yeah.
idea.
It's like me going and
So
asking my 9-year-old daughter where we should invest our money for the year. It's not a relevant, I mean, she'll tell me in Barbie
perhaps
doll,
it is.
right? Right. But it's kind of that ludicrous. People do that all the time. It's like somebody goes to their friend who's, hey, what do you think about this product for leaders in companies? And they're like an employee. They've never been a leader. And like, oh no, you should do this, this, and this. And like, oh, thanks. And then they rescape the product around that's like me going and investing in Barbie dolls for the year and then going, oh, it didn't work. It's like, no kidding, because she doesn't know anything about it and doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go to the decision makers. You have to test it on them. People who know you and love you and trust you already are one group. You also want to go to people that don't know you, don't love
Mm-hmm.
you, and don't trust you,
Mm-hmm.
and have that
Mm-hmm.
conversation across all the
Yep.
spectrum.
Yep.
And
Get
those are
all the
those are the harder people to get on a call because they don't
yeah.
know you.
Yeah. So you are doing it actually, because I wanted you to share because, also encourage our business community. Like we need to do the hard things. And
Yeah,
I
well,
found it very challenging myself.
so what I typically do is I typically go to somebody who's got a community, and that community doesn't know me. But then I say, okay,
Mm,
we run a webinar. Can I go live? Can I go on your podcast or something and share it
yeah.
with your community and then ask who would like to buy it? Something like that.
Hmm.
So
That's great. Well, that concludes for today's video. Thank you very much, Kane, for
thanks, Jen.
sharing with us your wonderful insights. Thank you.